Hey, this is Dave Pryor here at Agile 2014 on the exhibition floor at the Big Visible booth doing podcasts with people all week long who are speaking and presenting at the conference, and I'm very fortunate right now to have Ken Rubin with me. Thank you for coming by.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Ken is from Involution and has been around in this space since the dawn of this space, right?
Long time.
Yeah, and you've been doing a lot of different things. You're here giving some talks, but one of the things that you said you've been focusing on a lot lately is working with executive level management in Agile. So can you explain a little bit about why that's become more important in the space and what kind of work you're doing with them?
Sure. So for years, the focus has always been on team-level agility. At least that's how things got started. You know, people think of the Agile Manifesto and they think, team-oriented in nature. An appropriate place to start, but over time, what we're seeing is the real impediments are coming from the top.
Okay.
And also sideways to the team, sort of organizationally what surrounds the team. But if you really want to affect real change within the organization, you'll have to get the executive team bought on to what's happening. So what I find now that when I go visit companies, and I tend to work with larger companies, and when I'm out visiting them, if they don't get their senior management into the room at some level to be part of the conversation, we'll have a problem. One of the most common remarks I'll get in my classes will be, you're just preaching to the choir at this point.
Right.
If, you don't have anybody in the room who can do anything about what you just said. That might come up in the context of something like portfolio level management.
Okay.
Right, where they're saying, we're talking about how at the very beginning of the projects, if you haven't already established Agile principles at the executive level where portfolio management takes place, what you'll find is downstream, the teams are already behind the 8 ball and being able to do Agile in a reasonable way. And so I really think if long-term, if you don't get your senior management on board, you'll, in a sense, hit the ceiling, the glass ceiling for doing that. So what I'm interested in these days is how I can engage these managers, in particular the executives, and get them to embrace core Agile principles.
So is this different than when people say you should go top down? I mean, you're talking about a different level of involvement and like personal level buy-in, right?
Right, so if we think about different transitioning strategies, people would think bottom up, top down. To me, I think it's a blending of the right approaches. It really is cultural in my experience. Sometimes it works really well bottom up to a point. Right, then you hit that glass ceiling again.
Right.
If it comes top down, it may feel too command and control like. Senior management's dictating we have to do this, and maybe the people on the ground, the people who actually get bits under their fingernails, aren't bought in. So you kind of need to meet at some point. Actually, in a lot of organizations, the critical compression point becomes middle management.
And
bottom up, they want to do
the PMO.
Right. Well, and the PMO kind of sits right there. They have executive reporting responsibility, but they're right here. And so if we go bottom up, and then let's say we're good about getting senior management to come top down, we hit right in that zone here. So you really need full Agile adoption through the value chain that way. But I found right now I need to start top down. Excuse me. It's not start top down. I have to address executive management. They may have already begun bottom up. That's fine. Or they may want to start top down, but in either case, this is a missing link right now.
So are you saying that the executive level management of any given company, they have to truly embrace and become Agile themselves, or they just have to be prepared to cope with Agile?
No, I think more the former than the latter. In my experience, if they don't actually embrace core Agile principles, they can make decisions not out of malice, but more out of ignorance. Sorry, but the reality is if you don't know the core principles, I'll do this by example. I was doing a 90-minute executive presentation over lunch, which honestly is oftentimes the best I'll get. I'm teaching a class anyway. They'll roll the executives into the room, 90-minute lunch. Look, people have to eat anyway, right? So bring in food, feed them, and then they show up. So I made this comment, something along the lines of, oh, and by the way, executives, please don't go around and sort of rip people off of Scrum teams to work on your pet projects. And then immediately, this lady in the back of the room raises her hand. She goes, and not sarcastically, she's like, I do that all the time. And to me, that seemed like the right thing to do. I have a problem. I know who can solve it. I'll just go get that person to do it.
And that's probably how they got promoted to the level they're at anyway, because they got it done.
She understands organizationally what has to happen. So her follow-on remark was, what else shouldn't I be doing? Because I had just said, don't do that on Agile projects.
A lack of awareness.
That was her point. She's like, and as I said, she wasn't being sarcastic. She was saying, I would have done that. Now, tell me the other 5 things I'm probably going to go do that I shouldn't do, because if I do actually go and perform those things, it could disrupt Agile at the team level. So I felt comfortable there.
So with this example, this person has a habit of behaving a certain way, and it may be something that helped them rise within the ranks of the company. And they may intellectually understand, I'm not supposed to do this anymore. But there's a lot of dissonance that comes with changing behavior, right? I mean, is it fair to say that at the executive level, it's even more difficult than at the team level?
I think it's probably as difficult, maybe at times more. In large part, at the executive level, they're probably being pulled 15 different directions.
Sure.
And this idea was, well, Agile came in through development.
Yeah.
So Agile is really a development organization, but I'm an executive. I have more than just development reporting to me. I could have sales, marketing, overall operations. And so when I worry about all that, my first thought is, if I'm an executive, well, Agile's over here. What I'm trying to say to them is, if you really want to get the true benefits of agility, you should look at Agile across the value chain, across the set of organizations, departments within your organization, in order to make that happen. And it's a lack of awareness of the core Agile principles. It's not like they don't get it. It's when you finally mention it, it's like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. Like, for example, I'll mention things like at the portfolio level, do you know what your cost of delay is for a project? If I take that project right there and I tell you we're going to delay it by 1 month, what's the cost of that? And it's like, most teams don't measure it. Most organizations don't measure it. And then you watch an exec turn around and say to his other execs, do we do that? Are we doing that today? It's like the epiphany happens at that point of, wait a minute, that actually sounded like it might be a useful thing to have done. And then the discussion ensues. I'm like, okay, now we're making progress because the awareness is starting to set in. But up until someone at least mentions it, it may not have occurred that that was a useful thing to do. So imagine now that you could get this executive team, have them not only understand it, but embrace Agile principles. Think about downstream at the team level, how much more smoothly Agile might actually occur. When you can remove some higher level impediments that before don't seem like impediments to the management team because it meets their mental model today.
Or it's what they've always known, right?
It's comfortable.
So how important is this to them being able to adopt like portfolio Agile or Agile portfolio management?
Honestly, if I could change one thing in the larger companies that I visit today, it would be portfolio management. I think there's a lot of things I think have to be addressed, but this is one area where, if you think about it, most organizations are working on more projects at any one time than it can do. I mean, the joke I make is most of these companies are drowning in a sea of opportunity. Way too much to do. Well, the problem is if you don't recognize that, and you do something about it, I automatically overcommit all my Scrum teams downstream to work on way too many things. So if they could start to embrace core principles, and I define 11 strategies at the portfolio level, that 11 Agile strategies that I think if they adopted in whole, they could do Agile portfolio management, and they would probably get an enormous bang for their buck just by doing something like that. That's not the only thing they should do. But if I was going to start with a lot of companies, I'd start there. And then let the rest flow from that.
So you mentioned them over-allocating the people that are working on the teams. What are the other problems you see occurring that would hopefully drive them towards an Agile portfolio approach?
So they don't. So in addition to not knowing what their WIP limit is, which is starting too many projects at the same time, so they don't understand how much work in process they could do. I'm sure you've seen this. Most organizations at scale, their goal is to figure out how to keep people busy. I mean, no, imagine, let's say
feed the machine,
You're a middle manager in an organization. If you kept your people anything less than 100% utilized, your senior manager will look at you and go, well, what are you doing?
When the little stoplight thing's red,
So you keep them 100% busy, you get an attaboy on the back, and you're all good. Well, we all know the problem. It's not really a focus on idle workers. The goal is to focus on idle work. So you have to have the discipline of saying, we'll start work out of the portfolio until we get to a point in time where the next project we would start would affect the flow of the work on the existing projects. You work on too many things at once, you slow everything down. And intuitively, everybody knows that. I give them the restaurant analogy to help. If you go into a restaurant and there's available tables, why don't they seat you? Because a good restaurateur has learned over time that
pace it.
If they seat my party at that table, first I get bad service. And then if they're foolish enough to try and actually give my party service they then have to reduce the service of all
for
the
everybody
tables.
else. Yeah.
So senior managers, when you start so many projects out of your portfolio at the same time, that is like saying, let's seat everybody at the restaurant when I have limited server or kitchen capacity to do it. And when I say that to a senior manager, like, yeah, I've had that happen before. And we've all been into a restaurant where, you know, the proprietor got greedy,
right,
and we ended up getting bad service. So don't give bad service to all of your projects. Of course, we all know the issue. Somebody up here never wants to be the one to tell any stakeholder, I'm not working on your project.
And this is the thing that, to me, is I don't know, it seems to me like the core. It's almost like executive level management has to mature a little bit in how they look at their work, which they're not going to want to hear that. But you wouldn't try to spend twice as much money as you had because you can't pay the bills. But we do that with people, and like the example with tables and things like that.
Yeah, though you're right. I apologize for saying it's a lack of discipline, right? You have somebody up here who would rather work on 40 projects at the same time, even though the organization has no capacity to do that, because they want to be able to tell every stakeholder we're making progress, even though it's like this much progress we're making, versus keeping their people focused on 10 things
and getting them done
fast, and then swarming their teams onto the next head. But they don't have the discipline to say, we're not working on yours right now, but don't worry.
We'll get to it.
We're going to get to it, and when we get to it, you're going to have our commitment to get it done quickly. So we won't start it and drag it out for an eternity.
Yeah,
we'll get it done.
Cool.
So this is the kind of discipline I'm looking to see at the executive level.
Awesome. So if people want to contact you about this or find out more about Inolution, what's the best way to do it?
A good place to start is the website, which is www.inolution. That's INNOLUTION.com. And then from there, my links are up there. You can follow me on social media. Twitter, it's at Rubin, K-Rubin, Agile, all one word. Love to hear from people.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot for coming by.
Appreciate you hosting me.
And keep checking back because we're going to be posting more podcasts all week long. Thanks.